Activating cerebral coral control device.
Hey everybody, Relay here, and god damn, this is the week. Only a few more days till the 25th of August when Armored Core 6 officially comes out, and if it's not evident by my voice, I'm thrilled. Like this is huge. We haven't had an Armored Core game in a long time, and from what I've seen from this showcase that Bandai Namco just recently released, or hosted I should say, there's a lot to unpack. So this video is just going to be going over a lot of the key elements, so you don't have to watch through the whole 2 hours or so if you don't want to, and we'll just kind of pick at certain key elements, kind of go over maybe some newer dynamics and newer things that we haven't seen before, as well as a glimpse into the PvP, the insanity that is PvP, I should say, in Armored Core 6. So the first thing I'd like to start off with is just footage of the first mission. And for those of you who aren't aware, and I mentioned it in my last video, but Armored Core 6, especially if you're coming from a Dark Souls background, is much more fast-paced. So you always have to be focused, even more so than Dark Souls, because the enemies are constantly out to kill you, and they're moving, and generally either highly mobile or just they're many in numbers oftentimes. So you really have to concentrate quite a bit in the game. You see a fighting cowboy here who's a Souls-like veteran, really. He is trying to survive with only 365 AP left, which AP, for those of you who aren't aware, is your health. And some of the mechanics in this Armored Core 6, and probably others as well, I can't recall if they had repair or not. It's been a long time since the PlayStation 2. That's the last time I played Armored Core. But repair is a new feature, to me anyways, that basically says what it does. So he has 0 repairs remaining, and you typically can restore AP using the repair. One thing I found very interesting and awesome, actually, I love to see it, in the mission, even the first mission, which is the one we're watching, you can actually find in-game chests which contain more parts for your mech, which is huge. I love that. It's that ability of exploration. Even though the game isn't fully open world by any means, the fact that they hid this in certain parts in the mission is awesome. It makes you feel like you're really exploring to find the best possible gear for your loadout. So you can see, whereas earlier the repairs were 0, now that he's died, he respawns as checkpoint, and the repairs are back up to 3. So that's pretty sweet. At least you get 3 chances to kind of regenerate your health and go from there. So a little bit further on in the showcase, we get a chance to see the first boss battle, or true boss battle I should say, which is versus the Cleaner. So if you want to skip this part, I totally understand. I'll include timestamps in the description as well as the comments, and I'll have it pinned. But there's a really cool mechanic here that Ouroboros shows us, we get a little glimpse of, is that you actually have the ability to switch between your blade and your offhand. So while he's not using his blade, his offhand gun comes back out. And I'll try to slow it down so that you can see it, which is cool because it adds more abilities to your arsenal. So when all else seems lost, you inevitably die, you know, as we probably all will. He's just mentioning that you can in fact change the build to adapt to the situation. So what you can do after you die, on top of respawning and or restarting from the beginning in the mission, is you can go into the garage for assembly and swap out your gear. You can either make it tankier to give you a bit more health, put on a tank base, and that'll come into play with the legs. So they put a lot of emphasis on the legs because the legs influence a lot of the time the majority of the AP, as well as your mobility. So AP being health, and your mobility being obviously the ability to move around fast or slow. So the tank bases will obviously have more HP, whereas the very small bipedal legs will have less HP, but much higher mobility. There's also a stability component that I believe you have to have a certain stability to wield certain weapons. From my understanding, I don't have a great understanding of it, but that's what I seem to grasp from watching this. So now with the change of his arsenal, basically re-equipping his mech, he's able to hit the hit the crit spots really well. As you can see, he's lighting them up real hard. He already built up the stagger bar at the top there, which is fantastic. I think stagger is going to be a big mechanic in Armored Core 6 going forward. So there are certain guns that deal more, certain guns that deal less. So you'll just have to tweak your build to figure out what's best for you. And again, for those of you watching this boss fight, you can also see how aggressive the boss is. I mean, you've pretty much always got to be on your toes when you're fighting against these bosses. There are no pushovers. It's not like a mage in Elden Ring where you can just cast from like, 50 feet away and still kill an enemy real easily. Oftentimes these bosses, they actively chase you and are really, really aggressive. So if you don't react, you're pretty much dead. Moving on now to what's actually the larger component of the video, surprisingly, is PvP. So Armored Core has always had like a pretty strong PvP community, actually, even extending back to PlayStation 2, or PS3 rather, with Armored Core 4 and 5. Now, in this particular installment of Armored Core, it looks like the PvP, at least from what we're shown, is either going to be 3v3, 2v2, or 1v1. So you're probably asking why not more? You'll see in a minute why not more. It's a 3v3 PvP is insane. Like, I mean, the speed and the aggression coming from every mech on the field is just so much to keep track of that you often lose yourself in the barrage of missiles, laser beams, all that shit. So to have anything more than that, I think would be almost impossible to focus, and that comes into play later on. I mean, it's such a huge component of PvP, the ability to actually focus mid-game while everything else is going on. That's why some of the tweaks that you can make to your Armored Core oftentimes plays to your advantage. For example, if instead of being in the fray of things and being in the heat of battle on the ground, if you want to elevate yourself and get a much nicer view and understand exactly what's happening, you can equip a pair of quad legs or tetra legs and run those if you're one of those players, and you can watch from above and blast people with your missile launchers, your over-shoulder missile launchers. There are different play styles based on how you build your AC. In the PvP, we'll just start right now with the emblems. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but Armored Core used to have an emblem creation system. It kind of brings me back to the days of Black Ops 1, when everybody would start making their emblem. That was kind of a fun time. You can really show your creativity on those things. But going forward, the lobby for the multiplayer matchup, I guess, is pretty basic. I mean, there's nothing too special. You can take a look at it yourself. So just quickly analyzing the matchmaking screen, we've got obviously everybody's emblem and their names. We've got match format, which in this case is team. I'd imagine there's free for all as well. Time limit, so 5-minute time limit, which I mean is self-explanatory. So how this game scores points, oftentimes in versus, is actually not just by destroying enemy mechs, but rather how long you stay alive yourself, and the duration that you'll stay alive will also add to your team's points. So there's kind of a double mechanic with the point system there. Member rotation, I'm not quite sure what that means, so I'm just going to leave that blank for now. And obviously at the bottom of the map. Now moving over to the left hand side, we'll see all the basic elements of matchmaking really ready up. Sortie, spectate settings, I'm not even sure, to be honest. I'm not going to try to touch that. Assembly, which is your garage, where you can customize your mech or change your loadout in between matches. Okay, AC data looks like it's where you have all your presets for your different loadouts, where the arsenal would be when you try to equip and try to change your loadouts. The AC data looks like it's just a quick list selection for your other presets. Lastly, you have system, which to me just means system options. I don't know if they'd actually allow you to tweak that in a matchmaking setting, like, change your resolution or change the graphical quality. I don't know where else it could be, to be honest. So in the PvP part of this showcase, they show us a few maps. So they're a bit different in variety. The first one they showed us was very plain and straightforward. So it's a very flat surface. There's no vertical structures or places to hide, really. The second one is a bit like a desert, which is kind of cool to see. And this desert, even though it doesn't really have too many buildings, has a different terrain. So that really can come into play with the mobility of your AC and how well you move around. The third that we get to see is a snowy field, looks like a snowy town even, because there are actual vertical structures that you can jump on. There are buildings that you can use and leverage to either hide behind or get a higher vantage point. So these are all cool things in the maps, at least the few that we've seen, assuming that there might be a few more. And I'm not exactly sure how many they're going to be, but hopefully a few more than what we've seen would be nice, a bit more variety. Just to showcase the stagger element in Armored Core 6, I'm going to isolate a clip and show you just how effective stagger is and why it might be worth building a mech with guns that can cause stagger and guns that can quickly dish out damage afterwards. So we'll see here he's attacking with kind of an aerial standpoint, and he eventually deals enough damage to where the stagger bar on top of the enemy mech is lit up in red. Now at this point they're kind of disabled for a short period of time, so oftentimes what they'll do, and what you see in the showcase, all throughout the showcase really, is someone closing in with a weapon that can deal heavy damage. Oftentimes it's the laser sword, the sword, or the moonlight blade, some people might call it, which is a Dark Souls reference, and they'll go in to deal massive damage. Now there are certain parts of this, even though it's great that because your enemy's staggered, but they're only staggered for so long. If you somehow slip up or you get really too greedy, like in any good Souls-like game, you're going to get punished. So we see this with Ouroboros when he's playing. I guess he's trying to get one of the enemy team members. He goes in way too hard with the blade, and then all of a sudden, at like the flip of a switch, he's got two people trying to gank him, at least two people, and he just gets lit up and he gets blown to shit. So it's going to be fun to see how people play. Man, you can't be greedy. You can't be greedy. Additionally, I just want to clear up for any players who might be curious, the repair function, while it is available in the campaign, is not in any way available in the PvP portion of things, because obviously it wouldn't really jive well with the PvP setting. There's too many opportunities for repair, and so the repairability is disabled altogether in PvP. One of the last things I want to touch up on here is just the amount of critical thinking and coordination you need to do with your teammates to get a certain result, especially during a 3v3 where the battlefield is like stupid hectic. Amongst the chaos of everything going on, because it, like I said, I've said it millions of times, this game is stupidly fast-paced. You're going to have to learn how to coordinate with your teammates to isolate either a target or take out someone who might be a bigger threat than the other enemies on the team, a more immediate threat, and try to coordinate around that one target, or at least make sure that the heat coming from the other enemy fire isn't targeted on a single one of your teammates. And if there is a targeted attack, then try to either divert other mechs to come to you or try to back up your teammate so that you don't lose them. Oftentimes you'll see how people get a win is by charging in, not always recklessly, but charging in thinking they'll be the only opponent against this one mech, where two other teammates suddenly join in and it becomes just a slaughter. So we just have to be careful with that. So it's very important to be super conscious of everything that's going on as best as you can. And everybody's gonna make slip-ups. Like the game is so fast. So that's partly why I'm excited about it. Just the incredible ability to use critical thinking in these boss, or not these boss battles, but these PvP battles with your partners is going to be an awesome mechanic, and I think people are going to have a lot of fun with it, because it's something that's actually required for success. You need good communication. So lastly, I can't stress enough the amount of focus you have to pay attention to your surroundings, especially in PvP. So you have to pay a lot of attention to what the other mechs are doing, and if, for example, you find yourself in a 1v1, you have to think about what the other two mechs are going to be doing in that situation, because you know they're a team of three, and since there is respawns in these PvPs, at least if you have it enabled, you'll know that the other two are somewhere around, and odds are they might actually be trying to gun for you. So you really got to be careful and be wary of that, not to get too greedy and focus on a single target, especially if the other two are not within your range of sight and you can't predict whether or not they're going to attack you. I think I really look forward to seeing people's builds that they come up with in Armored Core 6 as well as their emblems. They're probably going to be some real goofy ones, but I love that. And I cannot wait until the 25th of August until we actually get our hands on the game itself. And I am thoroughly looking forward to it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to shoot. And yeah, take her easy.
Look, Boro.
Autobots, roll out.
Not